thanks for having me. And yeah, I left academia after about 20 years to pursue impact. I founded this project, the Unjournal, in mid-2023. As the motto states, we aim to make impactful research more rigorous, to make rigorous research more impactful, and to support open science and innovation. We're not a journal. We don't publish papers. We commission the public evaluation and rating of quantitative social science research focusing on global work with potential for global impact. This independent evaluation, I mean, I think Brian made quite a lot of my case. I was wondering how I was going to get this done in 10 minutes, but thank you, Brian. Can help researchers get feedback, credible assessment, and career capital so they can focus more on doing good research rather than on strategizing how to get into the top journal. Public evaluation and rating also helps policymakers and other research understand what research to use and how. We are a nonprofit funded by a grant from the Survival and Flourishing Funds Fund. Okay, so the basic case, as I said, Brian made much of this case. I think it's a similar case made by Publish, Review, Curate, that we're in a legacy system. We're based on a system based on paper, based on, this is the outline of my talk. First, I was going to make the basic case, and then I'll explain our process, what we've been able to do, and how you can be involved. Okay, so this is what printing presses looked like. This provided a natural filter, which is good to have a filter. We don't need that anymore. We can do better. Researchers can now publish their work to the world for free in great and interesting and interactive, wonderful formats, enabling communication, but we haven't moved on, as Brian pointed out. We're locked in by this expectation, second-order beliefs. You have to publish in these top journals. Well, other people think you have to publish in these top journals, so I can't change the standard. You'd never build a system like this today if you're trying to either disseminate or evaluate research. We can do better. I don't think we're truly locked in. You know, a lot of this is preaching to the choir. 90% of the time people say, I agree with this approach to separating evaluation and publication, but we're stuck. You know, if you want to hear complaints about the publishing process, just talk to any of your colleagues, go on social media, sit in any luncheon with academics. You'll get an earful. And you already know this, I'm sure. There's even a rap about it. You can click on all the links. Hopefully they're still clickable. The first slide had a link to this publication. Okay, so the main idea is that separating publication or publishing dissemination from evaluation unlocks so many things, some of which people have talked about today. Open access, reclaiming rents. Open access also allows you to have collaborative annotations on papers. It gets rid of frictions. It gives people access that either didn't or didn't think they had access. It allows us to go beyond the PDF. Separating this allows us to go beyond the PDF prisons. It allows evaluation across the research life cycle, as the Life Cycle Journals plan does. We're working with them as well as a provider of these evaluations. It allows dynamic and transparent formats, which are very friendly to open science and robust research. I'll show you some pics of those in a moment. We can evaluate these directly. We can now evaluate, dynamic documents directly. It doesn't have to be seen as an intermediate thing before you submit the real thing as a frozen PDF with an 80-page appendix. And I think we can do more informative assessment than the up-down, as I'll try to illustrate our model of this. And I think this is the biggest one. What do I mean by this? Well, if you go to any luncheon, at least for academic economists, you'll hear a lot more complaining and tips on what editor now lets what kind of papers into a journal and how you can sneak in than actual discussion of economics or research. Maybe your results may vary, but that suggests there's a huge motivation to play the game well. And it's a tedious, time-consuming, risky, random game, as Brian and others have noticed. We can make the incentives better aligned. Rather than a maze of academic submissions, share your research, get evaluation, get the career rewards, improve in situ, rather than, if you find a better way of improving the paper, having to pretend it's a new paper. Thank you. Okay. Okay, right. So, and also makes our literature, the literature cleaner without 10 different versions of the same-ish paper to deal with. This sort of format cannot be easily published in a journal, but it enables you to do these different robustness checks, and I think you might be familiar with this, called multiverse analysis. Again, we decouple it from having to be in a journal, the evaluation from having to be in a journal. Also, dynamic documents, which many of you may be familiar with. Again, these have not been taken up as much as I'd like. I think probably because people think, well, I have to repackage it for a journal anyway, so this is just a waste of time that people won't look at. Again, if we can separate, we can evaluate this separately, transparency, et cetera. All right, here's our approach. First of all, I want to say we're not the only ones in this space. It's not a new idea. There's been people in this space for a while. We're in conversations with each of these organizations. I think it's an old idea whose time has come, and we're doing things a little bit differently with more incentives, particular area, et cetera, et cetera. I think we've pushed forward in some ways that have been productive. What's our basic approach? Submit, or we come to you. In other words, if we see research we deem to be very impactful and in our area, we have a team that prioritizes it, discusses it, votes on it for impact potential, not for quality. Then we assign an evaluation manager on our team, someone with interest and expertise in that area. They choose expert evaluators to do these peer reviews, evaluations, and we pay them. I think that's different than the usual zero pay that you get at most places. Around $450 on average, but with sliding incentives. We're not exclusive, just as in the Life Cycle Journal. You can submit your paper to the Unjournal and also to a peer-reviewed journal. Because we don't publish the papers, we publish the evaluations. A little bit more about our process. This is a flow chart. You can see more on our page, unjournal.org, or it links to the larger knowledge base. Note, we always engage with the research authors. We sometimes require their permission if we're finding their research and they're not submitting it. We target about a 3 to 5 week turnaround time for the evaluations. We let the authors respond and the evaluators update any obvious errors before we make it public on all platforms, or as many platforms and bibliometrics, et cetera, as we can make it. Well, we publish it at unjournal.pubpub.org, but that also links in with a DOI, and we try to get into Google Scholar. All right, you can see a little bit about what we've done and how we do it. We ask the evaluators not only for a referee report, a high-quality referee report with some emphasis on impact, on credibility, on honest reporting, on methodology, less than innovation. We also offer, our managers offer some suggestions, things you might want to evaluate that are particularly relevant to the value of this paper. But we also ask them for quantified ratings on a percentile scale relative to work you've seen before, overall, different categories, and then one you see at the bottom, obviously these are explained in more detail in the form. So that allows us to benchmark against measures people are used to, journal tiers in different professions. And we say, where do you think this will what tier do you think this would publish? What tier do you think it deserves to publish? You can compare the papers, have a look at our data dashboard. This is the sort of questions we ask the evaluators in the form. We ask them for their belief as a percentile, also we elicit their uncertainty. And as I said, we ask them these questions that can be benchmarked. Okay, I'll finish up here. You can see the areas we cover, largely in global health and development, but going beyond that, we've evaluated about 35 papers. We have about 20 in the hopper. We make our output highly visible, try to make the ratings and the reports visible, everywhere you could find it. I would say, we've been building systems, we've been building a team, we've built a database of prioritized research, but I think the biggest and strongest output is if you go to unjournal.pubpub.org, you see public peer reviews in economics. I think it's stronger than you could find elsewhere. It's useful for research users, also useful for researchers. We got our hands dirty. We have some sense of what works in this space. We've been doing it for a couple of years. Here's our team, management team, advisory board. We're looking for more people to join, including seniors, but also at all levels, including PhD students. We have roles for PhD students to help us prioritize, suggest research. We have these different field specialist teams. You can sign up for our evaluator pool who are prioritized, and when we decide whom to ask. Obviously, we face this coordination problem, credibility issue. I'm happy to talk about that over the break, how we're working to solve these problems. And I'd like you to get involved, particularly everyone really, but seniors can play a role. Submit your research, join our team, use our work, engage with our work, encourage your students to engage, consider collaborating with us, and be part of the solution. There will be rewards for early adopters. Thanks for your time.